Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Newsgram. If you've ever planned an event and were the one in charge of all the things, then you know how much work it can be. I've put off doing events for that very reason. On the other hand, how many events have you attended and thought, I think that could have gone better. I might have been able to do a better job of that hosting it myself, and I'm no expert. Event planning is tricky, and there are a lot of things to consider. Lots of moving parts, if you will, and the best way to get good at it is, like anything else, trial and error, or do your research. Today, we're going to focus on a very specific kind of event, and we've got an expert here to help guide us through it. But if you've read the synopsis to this program, then you already know where I'm going.
If I asked you to dance, would you say yes?
Yes, dear listener, today we are going to host a sex party. This edition of Newsgram is for the mildly curious, as well as the community that openly celebrates sexuality. It's also for those who want to move in that direction. We are going to educate the curious and, if you so desire, help you to create opportunities to, well, let's just say meet some new friends.
Let's dance tonight.
Bushell is the author of the Sex Party Handbook.
Put it this way, when I was writing my book, and indeed when I published it, whenever I have mentioned it to somebody, it doesn't matter who they are, they're always curious. They always want to know more. And if I talk about my parties more generally, I've never had a situation where someone has been totally offended and shut the conversation down. So I think there's always interest, even if it's not necessarily, people might even say that's not something that I would be into, but that's quite interesting to hear about. So I think you have a kind of a tacit acceptance of, whether or not you want to do it. Well, live and let people do their own thing. And people who do have sex parties are very careful to ensure that they're not doing it in a way that draws attention to them.
Curiosity is part of our nature. And he's right, no one is walking around handing out flyers to this sort of event. So knowing how to navigate these waters is helpful. You may have seen the upside-down pineapple on your neighbor's door, the garden gnomes, or the flamingos in the lawn, and you may be wondering, what's going on next door? There are many rumored signs that someone is looking to spice up their relationship, but I digress. Bushell is not just an author, he's also a therapist, a podcaster, and the guest and creator of many sex parties.
I lived in Sweden for 18 months, and there was a party that was happening quite regularly. And I went along to that, and the guy who ran it was really, really nice. And his rules were really good. Some of my rules for my parties, I borrowed from that. So I was like, this is really, really good. But then I've been to other parties, like in London, where I walked away and I was just like, that's not how I would have done it. I wouldn't have organized it like that, or I would have made sure there were rules around that. Fortunately, I was never in a position where I had to say to somebody, this sucked and I hated it, but I did come away from situations thinking I wouldn't go back to that.
That experience is what led him to create the Sex Party Handbook, your ultimate guide to the world of orgies, sex clubs, and more, and how to host your own.
I'd gone to lots of parties before, different kinds, doing different things, and there's always something that could have been better. And there is, of course, that wonderful phrase, if you want something done properly, do it yourself.
The book is a pretty comprehensive glimpse into these passionate soirees, if you will, but it's also a lot more. There's also some history and some psychology, in addition to the how-to elements.
I've had a lot of people say to me, I've been to lots of sex parties and this is the best.
Well, that's as good as a 5-star Google review for me. So now, I think it's time that we get real. Let's imagine yourself at a party. It's filled with like-minded individuals, all in various stages of undress. That alone takes a bit of doing. And no matter how experienced you are in these types of social interactions, navigating one in your birthday suit, that's going to leave you feeling vulnerable, which is why there are rules.
I went to, it was this quite big house. There's quite a lot of people, and they were all in this loft space, in this sort of upstairs bedroom loft space. And it just kind of, everyone was sort of slowly, organically getting, undressed and interacting with each other. And I just kind of saw someone I thought was quite cute, and I reached out to him and touched him and smiled him. And he literally shoved my hand off and gave me a look that was like, what the hell are you doing? And I was like, that's that's not necessary. You can, politely and gently decline, but you don't have to shove people off you. And in fact, one of the rules I have for my party from that interaction is be nice, play with other people. If you don't want to play with someone, it's okay, but don't make people feel rejected when you're doing that.
Mortifying. So you finally get the courage to live this fantasy of yours, and this is your first experience? Check, please. Having the rules and knowing them, it's important for many reasons. One of them is also your safety.
The party I run currently is a party for queer men, and they don't use condoms. So you might say, well, that's not safe. And it's like, well, I make very clear to people, you need to be, for example, taking PrEP, which makes sure, that helps prevent transmission of HIV. Don't you know what PrEP is? Okay, here's a link to what that is, so you can find out about that. Get on it before you consider it. Know that you protect yourself. Other people are not going to protect you. I can't control what other people's statuses are. So that's one thing I have to frame, is that people need to take responsibility for their own safety.
Something I want to make clear is that my goal with this podcast is not to sway you in one way or another to host or attend a sex party. It's a very individual thing. This is strictly to present you with this resource if you are at all curious, because all the things that you're thinking have already been thought and experienced by Allie, whose perspective goes way back to a time when there was no shame about these things, mostly because way, way, way back in the day, we didn't even understand what sex was. Which takes us to the times we live in now.
I think definitely you're seeing more openness to this. Younger people are much more interested in things like non-monogamy, trying things that they have not experienced, fluidity around sexuality and gender. So the things that were maybe the rigidity that was there that could stop people wanting to try things or be open to things is slowly dissolving away.
And one of the things he talks about in his book is having some criteria about who is coming to the party. You can't just invite anyone. That's not being elitist or anything, it's about making sure that everyone feels safe and that they are all there to have a positive and fulfilling experience. And this is where I really wanted to share with you the story of the sex party gone wrong. But we do need to save some fun stuff for you to enjoy when you get his book. Just make a note that there are a lot of fun stories as well as the history and the how-to that go along with this book. Allie says the presence of group sex as a normal part of our sexual experience is becoming more and more common. So, perhaps the time is right to put pen to paper and lay out the exact details of how it is to be done and done correctly.
I put a lot of effort into making it very organized. So, I have my mailing list, I have my website, people are on the mailing list, I tell them when it's going to happen, I maintain my spreadsheet. When people come, I know who's coming, I know if people haven't come, and then if they didn't come when they said they were going to, they get the ban hammer and they don't get invited again. If there's any bad behavior, I would toss that person out immediately. I don't care how good looking they are. So I think I create a good space for people to have good fun within it. It doesn't hurt that if you read the book, you'll understand the terms I use. But I run a kind of an exclusive party where I've set up who the kinds of people I want to have in it, and then I select for that. It's not just anyone who wants to come. So my range is kind of like 20s to upper 40s, good looking, in shape. That is a subjective assessment. I'm the one making it. I am the committee. But it means that if people want to come and have an erotic experience, they don't have to then worry that I'm 21 and I'm gonna be in the same room as someone who's 70 and I'm not gonna know what to feel about that.
Right. I won't be checking my mailbox for an invitation since I am over 60 and married to a woman, but no hard feelings there. It's all good. If this sounds like something you'd like to know more about, just check out the Sex Party Handbook, your ultimate guide to the world of orgies, sex clubs, and more, and how to host your own. It's written by Allie Bushell. It's an easy-to-follow reference manual filled with tips and helpful advice for anyone interested in either attending or hosting a sex party. The book is available now at all the usual places, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and anywhere else that you could think to shop for books online. Enjoy, be safe, and have the time of your life. That will do it for this edition of Newsgram from webtalkradio.com.